If a narcissistic woman wants to sleep with you, she will always say this. Did you know that research indicates that nearly 1 in 10 individuals exhibit significant narcissistic traits, and yet many of those who have been in intimate relationships with narcissistic women report that the very words these women use in bed are as calculated as they are seductive? Have you ever wondered if there's a hidden, almost universal phrase, a subtle verbal trigger, that a narcissistic woman always deploys when she wants to sleep with you, a phrase designed not just to arouse you, but to reinforce her control over your emotions? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most mysterious aspects of narcissistic behavior in intimate relationships, exploring exactly what it is that a narcissistic woman says when she wants to sleep with you, and why understanding this can be a game changer in reclaiming your emotional power. Before we get started, I invite you to like, subscribe, and share this video if you find it enlightening. Your support is critical in spreading awareness about narcissistic behavior and the subtle ways in which it can manipulate even the most well-intentioned partners. As we dive into this discussion, I'll be explaining everything from a psychological perspective, based on clinical research and the observations of leading experts in the field. If you've ever felt confused by a partner's contradictory behavior, or wondered why a narcissistic woman's advances seem so calculated, then you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey into the heart of narcissistic manipulation and discover the truth behind the words that she always says. Narcissism is a complex personality disorder characterized by an excessive need for admiration, an inflated sense of self-importance, and a profound lack of empathy for others. In romantic relationships, these traits can manifest as an intoxicating blend of charm, seduction, and manipulation that draws you in and then keeps you hooked. At first glance, a narcissistic woman may seem like the epitome of desire and allure. Her confidence, beauty, and eloquence are magnetic. Yet behind this dazzling exterior lies a calculated strategist, a master manipulator whose every word and action is designed to serve her own self-interest. When it comes to intimacy, her approach is far from spontaneous. It is meticulously planned and executed to maintain control, extract validation, and ensure that you remain emotionally dependent on her. Many people assume that love is about genuine connection, mutual respect, and deep emotional intimacy. However, in a relationship with a narcissistic woman, the dynamics are drastically different. While you might initially be swept off your feet by her intense affection and alluring promises, you soon begin to notice a pattern, a recurring phrase that she uses at the most opportune moments, one that seems to carry a weight beyond its literal meaning. This phrase, though it might sound like a simple expression of desire, is in fact a powerful tool of manipulation. It's a verbal cue that triggers your need for validation, subtly reinforcing her dominance over your emotional state. Understanding this phenomenon is crucial, as it sheds light on the intricate web of narcissistic abuse and offers you a pathway to reclaiming your power and self-worth. For many men and women caught in the orbit of a narcissistic relationship, the journey is marked by a tumultuous cycle of intense highs and crushing lows. The narcissistic woman employs what psychologists refer to as love bombing at the start, a period of overwhelming, nearly intoxicating adoration that makes you feel like you are the center of her universe. During these moments, every compliment, every gesture of affection, and every carefully chosen word seems to promise a future of endless passion and connection. But as time goes on, the initial euphoria gives way to a different reality. The same words that once made you feel cherished now serve as a subtle reminder that your primary role in her life is to validate her self-worth. And if you ever dare to assert your own needs or express any form of independence, that phrase, The one you thought was simply an expression of desire transforms into a command, a tool to ensure that you remain under her control. Imagine the scenario. You're having an intimate moment, and instead of a spontaneous expression of passion, she leans in and says, "I need you tonight." On the surface, this might sound tender, even desperate for closeness. But when you analyze it through the lens of a psychologist's insight, you see that those few words carry an entirely different connotation. They are not merely about wanting physical intimacy. They are about needing you as a source of emotional sustenance. It's as if she is saying, "Without you, I'm incomplete," thereby placing you in a position where your affection becomes the only thing that can fill the void inside her. This is not love in its pure, mutual form. It is a calculated tactic to secure your emotional dependency. If you think that might be the only way a narcissistic woman expresses her desire, think again. There is a whole spectrum of similar phrases and subtle cues she employs, each designed to trigger your internal need for validation. From seemingly innocent remarks like, "I just can't get enough of you," to more explicit declarations such as, "I'm nothing without you." These statements are repeated like mantras that reinforce your role as her primary source of self-esteem. And while you might initially be drawn in by the flattery and the promise of deep connection, you soon find that these words come with a heavy price, a price that leaves you feeling used, empty, and perpetually unfulfilled. Let's take a moment to break down the psychological underpinnings of these behaviors. Narcissists, by definition, are driven by an insatiable need for external validation. Their self-worth is not something that comes from within. It is entirely dependent on the admiration they receive from those around them. When a narcissistic woman says something like, "I need you tonight," it is not an expression of genuine vulnerability, but a calculated demand. It is a call for affirmation, a way to ensure that you provide the emotional energy that she requires to sustain her inflated self-image. Every time you respond with warmth, even if it's just a fleeting smile or a soft touch, you are feeding into her narcissistic supply, reinforcing her belief that she is indispensable. This dynamic creates an addictive cycle, one where you begin to crave the moments of affection, even as they are interspersed with periods of cold detachment and emotional withdrawal. Now, it might be tempting to think that confronting her or arguing back would resolve the issue. However, research in clinical psychology consistently shows that direct confrontation often results in further manipulation and escalation. Narcissistic individuals are adept at deflecting criticism, twisting your words, and turning the conversation around to make you feel at fault. This is why the best approach is not to engage in arguments, but rather to recognize these patterns for what they are, a systematic effort to keep you emotionally entangled. When you understand that her desire for intimacy is, in fact, a mechanism to secure control, you can begin to detach emotionally from the cycle and focus on what truly matters, your own well-being. A critical turning point comes when you realize that the narcissistic woman's relentless pursuit of your validation is not about building a meaningful connection, but about reinforcing her own distorted self-image. This insight is both liberating and empowering. It means that every time she says, "I need you tonight," you have the opportunity to see through the facade and reclaim your power. Instead of allowing her words to pull you back into a cycle of dependency, you can choose to view them as a red flag, an indicator of the toxic dynamics at play. Psychologists often emphasize that true emotional resilience is built on self-awareness and the ability to set firm boundaries. When you start to see her manipulative tactics for what they are, you begin to understand that her words are not a reflection of your worth, but a desperate cry for validation that has nothing to do with genuine love. As you continue to navigate the complexities of narcissistic relationships, it's important to remember that the key to healing lies in shifting your focus away from her manipulative behaviors and towards your own growth and self-care. Every time you resist the urge to respond emotionally to her calculated pleas, you weaken her hold over you. Over time, this gradual disengagement builds a solid foundation of self-respect and independence that no narcissist can undermine. This process is not immediate, and it often requires significant inner work, therapy, self-reflection, and a commitment to personal development. But every small victory contributes to a larger transformation. Let me share a powerful anecdote that encapsulates this journey. Consider the story of a man who spent years in a relationship with a narcissistic partner who would frequently use phrases like, "I need you tonight," to manipulate him. At first, he was captivated by her charm and the intense emotional highs that accompanied her love bombing. However, as the relationship progressed, he began to notice a pattern. Each time he responded with the affection she demanded, he felt increasingly drained and diminished. The more he engaged, the more she expected, until it reached a breaking point where he realized that her desire for his attention was less about love and more about control. With the help of therapy, he learned to recognize these manipulative patterns and gradually shifted his focus inward. He started setting boundaries, practicing emotional detachment, and investing in his own healing. As he reclaimed his independence, he noticed that her attempts to pull him back in became desperate and erratic. Eventually, she began to lose her hold on him entirely, and he emerged as a stronger, more self-assured individual. Her famous line, once the trigger for his emotional dependency, became nothing more than a hollow echo of the past. This story, like many others, is a testament to the power of self-awareness and the importance of reclaiming your own emotional strength. Now, if you're listening to this and you've experienced similar manipulation, know that you are not alone. The narcissistic tactics we're discussing today are not random acts of cruelty. They are carefully orchestrated strategies designed to keep you in a perpetual state of dependency. And while it might seem daunting to break free from such a cycle, remember that every moment you choose self-care over emotional reactivity is a step towards true liberation. Your journey to healing is a testament to your resilience, and every time you resist the pull of their manipulation, you are affirming your own worth and reclaiming your power. As a psychologist, I've seen time and again that the key to overcoming narcissistic abuse lies in understanding the mechanisms behind it. The phrase, "I need you tonight," is more than just a call for intimacy. It's a calculated tool of control, a desperate plea that encapsulates everything a narcissistic woman does to ensure she remains the center of your emotional universe. By recognizing this, you begin to dismantle the illusion that her words have any real meaning beyond their function as a manipulative tactic. Instead of being drawn back into the vortex of her need for validation, you can choose to see her behavior for what it truly is, a manifestation of deep-seated insecurities and an unrelenting desire for power. Every relationship has its challenges, but the toxicity of a narcissistic relationship is unique in its ability to erode your sense of self until you are nothing more than a shell of who you once were. However, the most empowering realization is that you have the power to change the dynamic entirely. When you stop responding to her manipulative cues and instead focus on building your own emotional resilience, you create a space where her control is no longer effective. It is in this space that you begin to thrive, not as a victim, but as a person who is fully in charge of their own destiny. Your worth is defined by your inner strength, not by the narcissist's distorted perception of you. The journey to reclaiming your emotional autonomy is not always straightforward. It often involves confronting painful memories, processing deep-seated trauma, and sometimes even relearning how to trust your own instincts. But each step you take away from her toxic influence brings you closer to a life filled with genuine love, respect, and fulfillment. The transformation may be gradual, but the impact is profound. You begin to see that every time you choose to focus on your own growth instead of giving in to her demands, you are rewriting the narrative of your life. What once seemed like a never-ending cycle of manipulation and heartache slowly gives way to a newfound sense of freedom and self-assurance. And as your confidence grows, you become less and less affected by the echoes of her manipulative words. It's essential to understand that the narcissist's tactics, while devastating, are ultimately a reflection of their own inner void. They project their need for validation onto you because they are incapable of finding it within themselves. The moment you break free from the cycle and begin to validate your own worth, you starve them of the emotional fuel they require. Over time, this withdrawal of supply causes their carefully constructed facade to crumble, revealing a depth of insecurity that they had long tried to hide behind layers of charm and deceit. When a narcissistic woman can no longer get the admiration or control she craves, she begins to retreat into herself, often with a mix of anger, despair, and regret. It is this natural consequence of her own destructive behavior that you, by focusing on your healing, can ultimately trigger her collapse. Remember, the goal here is not to exact revenge, but to reclaim your own power. The path to healing involves a profound shift in perspective, a realization that her manipulative tactics are not a reflection of your inadequacy, but a mirror of her own unresolved issues. When you internalize this truth, you no longer give her the satisfaction of controlling your emotions. Instead, you step into a space of emotional detachment, where your responses are governed by your own inner strength rather than by her need for validation. This shift is liberating, as it marks the beginning of a new chapter where you are no longer defined by the narcissist's toxic influence. If you're listening to this, and you recognize the patterns in your own experiences, know that you are not alone. The road to recovery from narcissistic abuse can be long and challenging, but every step you take towards self-empowerment is a victory against the manipulation and control that once held you captive. Every moment of emotional independence, every boundary you set, is a testament to your resilience. And while the narcissist may continue to use that seductive line, "I need you tonight," as a tool of control, you now have the knowledge and the power to see through it. The journey towards healing is deeply personal and requires constant vigilance. It may help to seek support from trusted friends, family, or even professional counselors who specialize in narcissistic abuse. These resources can provide you with additional tools and insights to reinforce your boundaries and to understand that your worth is not determined by the narcissist's fluctuating affections. Instead, your value is intrinsic, and it grows with every step you take towards self-love and emotional freedom. In conclusion, the phrase a narcissistic woman uses to signal her need for intimacy is not a declaration of genuine love, but a carefully calculated maneuver designed to keep you emotionally dependent on her. It is a reminder of the toxic dynamics at play, dynamics that strip you of your autonomy and force you into a cycle of emotional highs and crushing lows. However, by understanding the psychological underpinnings of this behavior and by refusing to engage with her manipulative tactics, you can reclaim your power and break free from the cycle of abuse. Your journey to healing is marked by every moment you choose self-respect over submission, every instance where you let your inner strength shine through, even in the face of her relentless demands. The narcissist's desperate need for validation, control, and admiration is nothing more than a reflection of her own insecurities, a truth that, once recognized, renders her manipulative words powerless. If you found this video insightful, Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might be struggling with narcissistic abuse or toxic relationships. Your support helps us spread awareness about these destructive patterns and empowers more people to reclaim their emotional freedom. I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might be the beacon of hope that someone else needs to hear. And if you're interested in learning more about how to set healthy boundaries, heal from toxic relationships, and rebuild your self-worth, be sure to check out our next video on emotional recovery and self-empowerment. Stay strong, stay empowered, and always remember, the power to reclaim your life lies within you. I'll see you in the next video.